So the number one most important decision that you're gonna make as an entrepreneur is who do you go in business with? Because choosing a business partner is even more, some would say, important than choosing a spouse. Because the truth is that getting out of a marriage is a lot of times easier than getting out of a business relationship. Today, I want to tell you a few stories of my business partner situations. I've had one that almost cost me my freedom, meaning I was going to go to jail if I kept doing that business, and I've had others that have helped me make millions and millions of dollars. I've also had other business partners that I regretted literally almost immediately, and other ones that I couldn't have done what I've done without. Why would you want a business partner? A few reasons. Number one, you need them. You can't do the business without them, whether or not it's financial assistance, whether or not it's a skill set, whether or not it's like whatever. Now, one critical mistake that I have made a few times actually was I gave equity in my business away to people that I should have paid for a service. Never give away equity to people that you should pay. And what I mean by this is a lot of times when you're starting a business, right, you're really like conserving your cash. And you'll need something, like whether or not it's marketing or development or, a website or whatever it is. And instead of actually paying the person to do the service and do the work, you say to them, all right, if you want to be my partner, because that's what you're doing, I'll give you 5%, 10%, 20%. You'll give away your equity. Well, guess what? These people are now your business partners. And then you're going to have to basically make decisions based on their opinions, which sometimes is tricky, but you've given away all this equity. And if you're successful in terms of your business, the $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 you would have paid them, now all of a sudden is worth, $500,000, $2 million, $20 million, right? Now, if they're going to continuously bring value and be of help to you and you're always going to need them, then okay, maybe. But the truth is, a lot of times entrepreneurs get stupid, right? When they're starting and they just want to save money, and so they'll allow other people into their business and their baby that they just should have paid a little bit of cash and had them basically do whatever they needed to do, and then you still retain 100% ownership of your company. But sometimes you can't do that, right? Sometimes you need help. Whether or not it's sharing the workload, whether or not it is financially, because like for Tiege Hanley, right? I have business partners. I've got 3 of them. I've got the chemist, I've got Rob, and I've got Kelly. When that relationship started, everybody did a different thing. Everybody had their own unique role. The chemist, he was responsible for making the products awesome. Kelly was going to be the CEO. He also was the one bringing cash to start the business. With Tiege Hanley, I believe the number was like around $150,000 that Kelly had that he was willing to pledge to this business. I don't believe we ever spent all of that money because we're almost profitable instantly, but that money helped us create and do opening orders and the website and all the things that you're supposed to pay for. And then Rob was gonna handle all the technology, right? The website and the day-to-day like kind of stuff when it comes to operating a D2C platform. Kelly was also gonna be responsible for fulfillment out of Chicago, and that's how we decided to set it up. I was gonna be the marketing arm. And so you see, all 4 of us had a different role. And so it made sense. It made sense to come together and do it together because I couldn't have done Tiege Hanley by myself, or I should say I wouldn't have been as successful if I had tried. Pete and Pedro, I own 100%. Oh, let me back it up. My first business partner was actually a guy that I opened a nutrition store with, right? I met him at a gym. He's like, hey, I got an investor, 30 grand. I can open this. Would you want to help me? And at the time I was like, hell yeah, because it was my first experience with business, right? He's like, you're going to get equity. He made me a lot of promises. We ended up opening, I believe it was 3 locations within the span of like 2 years. But there was something that became highly illegal during that time. When we started, it was cool. It was a product called Blue Nitro. There are many different products like this, but essentially it was like GHB. It was like kind of like a legalized GHB. It was made from furanone dihydro. The way they made it was you take a 32-ounce bottle, you add 1 ounce of furanone dihydro, which is used to strip the paint off of boats. So not exactly sounding super healthy. And you could buy like a giant big like 50-gallon jug of this stuff, right? And so you would take 1 ounce of the furanone dihydro, you would put it in a bottle, you would add water and some type of flavoring like Kool-Aid, right? So 1 part furanone dihydro, 31 parts, Kool-Aid, right? You'd put a label on it, you'd shake it up, boom. And you'd take like 1 cap of it and it would mess you up. It was literally like GHB. And for those of you who have no idea what that is, good, because it does nothing good for anybody. Anyway, long story short, what I came to realize at that time in my life is that bodybuilders and people in the fitness industry are the biggest drug addicts you'd ever want to meet. They look great, but a lot of times drugs go hand in hand in a very hard party lifestyle. Lots of drinking, lots of drugs, lots of stuff. Anyway, long story short, you can make it yourself, right? And at the time, it was kind of like, it wasn't illegal, but then the government and the feds were like, wait a second, this is now a schedule, class, whatever, and if you sell it, you're gonna go to prison. And so at this point, it became illegal. And so guess what happened? The price shot up, right? And everybody that was selling it that had it was charging like 200% more for it. Maybe it was like $100 or $200 or $300, and it was literally like all profit. And so at this point, he was selling a ton of it. We became very popular in the local area with having this, and he was making it literally in the back of the nutrition store. And one day, I just said, you know what? This isn't gonna work, because I knew that eventually it was probably gonna get shut down. And at that point, knowing that you're selling something that is illegal, even if you're making a lot of profit, it just didn't feel good to me, and I knew that I would not flourish or thrive in prison. I said, peace, I'm out of here, and I left and got a job at a Crunch Fitness right down the street. It was during the time at the nutrition store that I met a woman. She was older than me. She was at the time, I was in my 20s, like early 20s, like 22, 23. She was about 20 years older than me, so she was like 43. You know, there was nothing like funky or weird about that, but I helped her lose 100 pounds. And so one day she came to me, she said, Aaron, I want to help other people like you helped me. And so I said, great. And she goes, would you be my business partner and help me open a personal training studio? I said, fuck yeah. Long story short, she's my business partner. She put all the money up. She had a good job. She was a technical writer. She had a great job that she was leaving because she wanted to be a personal trainer. At the time, personal training was pretty hot, right? You were making a lot of money per session, but long story short, I've told this sob story a million times, right? I signed the lease to the facility that we were opening the gym in, or the personal training studio, on September 11th. The September 11th, where the planes are crashing into the World Trade Center. That should have been an omen as to how that business was going to unfold. Now, the good news with having her as my partner, A, she put up the money. B, she brought a lot of business experience and also life experience to the table. I was young. I was 22 years old. I didn't know much. I learned some things from the nutrition store, right? But in terms of like really running a business and marketing and doing that, I really didn't have all that much experience. And so she also and I were incredibly close, like super close friends. And there was nothing ever weird about it. Like I've said before, it was strictly platonic. We were so close. We were so incredibly close. And I literally would have done anything for her. Long story short, the business ended up failing, going out of business. Now, looking back, at the time when I was in that business and I was with her, I was so desperate for it to work. I was so desperate to be successful because I didn't know what else was going to happen. I didn't know what my plan B was. I never had a plan B. I was so desperate. I overlooked a lot of things. Now, being this age and having so much experience with other businesses, I realize now that there were some definite fundamental issues with her personality, and the way that she would interact with people and employees, including me, that it was definitely not a very healthy relationship. But we were on all the leases together. We were on all the loans together. So when everything failed, we both had to file bankruptcy. And it was tremendously devastating. And one of the hardest things about that time, it wasn't that, the business failed. It wasn't that I was broke because I'd been broke before. It was that she never wanted to talk to me again. And later on, I invited her. We were so close. I can't even stress that. We were together, I guess, in terms of our business relationship. I guess it was 4 years. It seems like longer than that, but it was a very hard 4 years. I never made any money. I was making like $24,000 a year when I had the fitness center, and then we tried to franchise. We raised some money. Issues there. She freaked out on one of my investors. The investor and her got into this big legal battle. It was a disaster. It was an unmitigated disaster. But her and I were super close, and she was like Like her, like I can't stress how close we were. And it was a very formative time in my life. And I really looked to her for guidance. I looked to her for, advice. And when she went away, when we closed the business, she basically never talked to me ever again. I was friends with her husband that she ended up divorcing during this time because I'm telling you, when businesses don't go well, it stresses everything out. It stresses your relationship with your business partner, but it also stresses your personal relationships. And so with her, I was very good friends with her husband that she ended up getting a divorce from. And I said to her, I go, why doesn't she want to talk to me? Like, we sent her an invitation to her wedding. She sent it back, and said, I can't come, it's too painful. And he said something that I'll never forget. He goes, she equates it to you guys losing a child. And I said, what do you mean by that? And she said, it was so painful, the loss of the business, so painful, everything we went through, that every time she looked at me or spoke to me, she felt sad and bad. And so it's not that she didn't care or love me, it was that it was so painful for her. But the truth is that for a long time, I was very resentful. I was very angry. I'm like, why wouldn't she want to talk to me? Like, I love this woman. Like, she was, somebody that did so much for me. And I just want to tell her, like, thank you, thank you, thank you, right? What I came to realize is that if she had stuck around and didn't basically leave me and totally throw me out the door, I would have still been trying to please her, or I would have been trying to make it successful with her. I needed her to go in order for me to grow up as a man and as an entrepreneur, and I needed to figure shit out myself because I relied so heavily on her to help and so heavily on her for basically direction and guidance because I was scared, because I didn't know what to do next, and I didn't have the experience, the life experience even that she did. But the best thing that she did looking back was leave and never say hi again. It's painful, but it was the best thing she could do for me. But your boy said, you know what, I'm gonna see if I can figure this out. And so YouTube, I'm my own boss there. I don't have any partners with that. But then something interesting happened. It was probably, now it's been like 6 or 7 years. I went to my best friend Terry from high school. I said, Terry, actually it was Brian. Brian, I know you watch the vlog, so I got to give you credit too. Brian and Terry were my friends from high school. They were brothers, right? Terry was in my grade, Brian was 2 years younger. And so growing up with them, they're honestly the only two people from my high school that I still stayed in touch with. And then once a year, I would go to my family reunion down in Atlantic City at my aunt's house. And Terry would always come down. And usually he would be talking about what he was doing. He was really big, and he was actually, interesting side note, Terry was the first person I knew out of high school that made $100,000 at 21. He didn't go to college, or he went for a year and was like, this isn't for me. And he started selling cars, and he was really, really, really good at it, right? Because he's a salesperson. And so right away, he starts making a ton of money. And so anyway, long story short, he would always come down to the shore, and I'd see him, I'd talk to him, I'd talk to Brian. Every time I'd go out to Shark Tank, Brian lived out in California, I'd see Brian, and he was always like, you should hire Terry. You and Terry should work together. Terry would be an incredible salesperson. Well, one day, Terry was kind of in between things. One year, he came down, and Brian had been in my ear. He's like, you should really talk to Terry. And so I'm like, man, what would that look like? How do I bring somebody in at Alpha M, and what do I pay him? I don't know. I can't pay him all that much. And so at the time that Terry and I kind of got together, I was making total with everything. It was Pete and Pedro, Alpha M, everything. It was the first year I made $1 million, right? Tons of money, wildly tons of money, more than I ever dreamed possible. So Terry comes down and we're talking. The problem with my YouTube channel and my YouTube at that point is that I didn't have the time or the patience or the interest in selling advertising. I didn't want to have to deal with negotiating deals and stuff like that when an advertiser would reach out or a sponsor. And so I'd send them a media kit. They'd get it. They'd be like, okay. If they said yes, great. They'd pay me. We'd do it. If they never got back to me, I'd forget about it. I didn't manage that part of the business, right? I just let people kind of pay me who wanted to do it, and I really didn't make it much of a priority. But I knew that I was losing money, and I knew that that was a part of that business, YouTube, that I just didn't like. I didn't want to have to sell me, right? And so one year, Terry, he was in between jobs. I knew that he was possibly talking to Brian about possibly coming to help me. And I said to him, and he and I had a conversation, and I said, how much do you need? Bottom line, how much do you need to cover your bills, your expenses for, a month. And he goes, $5,000. That's my bottom line. That's how much I need. I said, okay, here's what we'll do. 3 months. We'll give it 3 months in order to basically see if it's working. I'll commit $15,000. If it doesn't work, then we got to maintain a friendship. That's the most important thing. And he said, okay, I'll try it. And right away, it was wildly successful. So successful that I told my friend Antonio, I said, yo, I got this guy, Terry, he's killing it. He's making all these deals. I'm making more money. It's taking work off my plate. He's like, will he do it for me? And so Terry started selling Antonio's. And then we said, wait a second, maybe we can help all these guys that we're friends with, our network, the Menfluential community. Maybe we can basically sell advertising to them. And so we ended up starting a new company. I've got 2 business partners with Menfluential. I've got Terry and I've got Antonio. All right, Antonio and I don't do much in terms of that business. Terry does the lion's share of the work along with his brother Brian and Tom. And so Antonio and I, our main role in the beginning was to basically not only do advertising on our channels so that Terry could make commission. It was also to bring in our network of people. Because of the Menfluential Conference, we had a very deep network of amazing influencers in a very similar or same space. Now, Menfluential is bigger, right? We sell advertising for tons of top guys, everything from podcasts to YouTube channels to, like, you name it. Like, if there's a similar audience in terms of a male demographic, we can sell shit. Chanley, as I've mentioned before, I've got a few different business partners, and that has been very successful in terms of the partnership. Now, that being said, it's not without its challenges, right? You will have disagreements. I have had many disagreements with Kelly specifically at T. Chanley. Kelly's an incredible guy, a great leader. He's also, very driven and motivated, and so am I. And so when we see things differently, we can butt heads, but we always come back to the fact that we want the best for our business. And so that's something you got to understand. The other thing is that everybody kind of does what they say they're going to do, because you can get into a business relationship where everybody in the beginning is going to talk the talk, right? I can do this. I'm going to do this. This is the value I'm bringing. We should team up and we should do that. But when the rubber hits the road, what do they actually do? And the beautiful thing with T. Chanley and all of my businesses that I currently have, everybody walks the walk. But I've also had some that didn't. Enemy. I've mentioned that story before. I started with a friend because I wanted to help him and us do it together, and it just didn't work out. Another successful partnership for me is Salon Posta. The way that Salon Posta works, I bought the building, I renovated it, I put all the chairs in it, I bought everything, and then we started a separate entity, Salon Posta LLC, that has me, Tony, and Steven. There are 3 owners. Steven is the majority owner. He was also the person and the reason why we all got together. He also understands hair. He understands hairstylists. He knew what that industry was supposed to do or what it was supposed to look like, and so he's the expert. Tony and I don't know shit about that, but Tony had a very deep knowledge and understanding of sort of the back end, right? Or the business management component in terms of, the books and, payroll and all those things. Tony's wife, Courtney, which you guys have met if you used to watch the T. Chanley vlog, she then came in as the manager. So Steven got to do what Steven does, which is do hair and basically be high level. Courtney, Tony's wife, came in, who is also an owner because she's married to Tony, came in and day-to-day operations. She's the manager. Tony's looking at the books. Me, I collect rent, and I come in every once in a while, film a video, and say what's up. My role is to talk about the salon and basically just be awesome and get a check, when we do distributions. But that partnership, once again, has worked out beautifully, but it didn't come without its challenges. Anytime you get into a business or a relationship with somebody, you're going to have issues. You're going to have to figure things out. You're going to have fights. But as long as you guys are on the same page and both willing to roll up your sleeves and figure it out, it can be an amazing thing. And oftentimes, it's going to allow you to do what you do really well, and he or she or whatever or whoever you're in business with can also do what they're really good at. But if it doesn't work out that way, you got to understand or have the conversation or an operating agreement which specifies and literally details all of the daily workings of your business, you gotta have it. You gotta have it written down, and you gotta figure it out when everything's good. Don't try to have an operating agreement drawn up when you're fighting with your partner, when you realize that your partner is lazy or has a spending problem. You've gotta have an incredibly solid operating agreement, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't go into business with somebody. It means you need to do your due diligence, a background check, and you need to roll the dice, because a lot of it is luck. So anyway, I know this video was a little bit all over the place. Brain dumping here, gentlemen, brain dumping. But I didn't want to talk any more about business without talking about something that is incredibly core and fundamental to your success or possible failure. Because, like I said, it literally is easier oftentimes to get out of a relationship or a marriage than it is a business relationship. There's all sorts of issues, and nobody wins when you use attorneys except the attorneys. Guys, if you've got a question about anything I talked about or want me to talk about Menfluential, down below, say, yo, Alpha, let's hear it.